Great. Welcome, everyone. We're just about to start. We have over 700 registered guests for tonight's event, Employer Insights, Ask a Recruiter. And tonight we have our special guests from CIBC and Kroll. So welcome and thank you so much for joining. We're going to have a really great conversation tonight. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the land where I'm residing today for this webinar. I'm actually in the region of Durham, and we exist on the lands that the Mississauga Sagi Ganishabeg inhabited for thousands of years prior to European colonization. These lands are the traditional and territory trees of the nations covered under the Williams Treaties, including the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, Alderville First Nation, Hiawatha First Nation, Curve Lake First Nation, and the Chippewa Nations of Georgina Island, Beausoleil, and Rama. I honor, recognize, and respect our Indigenous peoples as the right holders and stewards of the lands and waters on which we have the privilege to live. In our efforts towards reconciliation, we continue to build and strengthen relationships with First Nations, as well as the large Métis communities and growing Inuit communities here in Durham. I'm committed to learning from Indigenous values and knowledge, building opportunities for collaboration, and recognizing that we are all connected. I know we just recently acknowledge the Truth and Reconciliation Day on September 30th. And I just wanted to say that I'm very grateful to be here on this land and to hold this space with all of you this evening. So welcome. A little bit about Devant, who is hosting the webinar tonight. We work with over 48,000 international students and newcomers to get hired in Canada. We offer free, actionable advice from career coaches and industry experts at our live events. We partner with multiple universities and colleges across Canada and multiple non-for-profits locally across Canada as well. Devant offers the latest AI-driven tools to polish your resume, your interview skills, and offer up-to-date labor market knowledge. We are really excited to connect you with partners and employers to aid your immigration, your academic life, and your career development in your communities. Welcome. A little bit about me. My name is Sisha Maharaj. I'm a senior consultant with business development and external relations at Devant, and I'm really passionate about employment and removing barriers for everyone in Canada. I'm super excited to host this event with you tonight. I do have a background in post-secondary education as well as financial services, so this is a big treat for me. Both worlds are coming together. I would like to invite you, just a little bit of housekeeping. I would like to invite you to use the Q&A for your questions this evening. I have about 30 minutes where we'll be talking to our guests this evening to give some information about recruitment and share their advice. But at the same time, I'd like to invite you to ask your questions in the Q&A feature. As you can see in the bottom, there's a chat, but there's also a Q&A. And this will just help to organize the questions in order of which it's received. I know you're going to have amazing questions just by the volume of interest in this evening. All participants, you are muted just so that we can have a clear communication with our guests tonight. So there's no need for video if you're joining. This session is recorded. It will be shared with all participants as a follow-up. And as I said, I will share with you some more events that we're hosting. We do partner with universities and colleges, so I do want to encourage you to leverage your career center, leverage your international student center as well. If you're joining us from a post-secondary institution, if you're joining us from the community, we're happy to connect you with our newcomer supports as well. So let's get to know each other a little bit. I'm going to do a quick poll just so we can find out who's in the room right now. I'd also hope that you can leave this session meeting just one more person or a new friend that you may not have met yet. So I'd love to learn more about, you who's joining us today. Maybe I'm going to launch this poll. Can you maybe share with us, what city are you joining us tonight? Maybe if you want to put that in the poll, that would be great. I know that we have most of you are joining from Ontario. I notice about 20 or so percent are joining from BC. We have a few colleagues from Quebec, Atlantic area as well. So please take a minute and share with us, what city are you joining this webinar from today? Oh, wonderful. I see 70. We're getting up to 100 responses. Thank you so much for participating. When we get to 100, I'll start to share. Okay, I'm going to share this. Wow, we've got quite a bit of responses. We've got 103 responses here. I hope you guys can see this. We've got 103 responses. We've got Mississauga. Hello, Mississauga. Hello, Toronto, Fort St. John. We've got North Bay, downtown Toronto. Wow. We've got quite a few representatives right now. This is amazing. Thank you so much for your responses. Wonderful. I love to see all of the responses here tonight. Thank you so much. So now we're going to start off with our presentation. I'm going to introduce some of our colleagues who are here on the call with us. I will be doing a few more polls throughout the session, so continue please to use it. That was a good practice. I also want to encourage you to share in the chat. Maybe you can introduce yourself, where you're from, what your career goal is, and feel free also to share with us, where do you call home? If you're joining us as a newcomer to Canada, we'd love to welcome you into this space, and we'd love to hear, where do you call home? So let's get started. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge CIBC, who's sponsoring this event with us tonight. We do have CIBC banking representatives here tonight. I will introduce Christopher Piersani. He's a community general manager from CIBC. He can be contacted directly if you have any questions about banking as a newcomer or banking in your region. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of the perks that you have as a newcomer as well. So thank you so much, CIBC, for sponsoring this special webinar this evening and this conversation. Okay, so let's get started. Our conversation this evening, we've got Rebecca Leeper, Senior Campus Talent Acquisition Partner, joining us. We have Lena Cherian, I hope I pronounced it right, your last name, Director of People, Culture, and Brand at CIBC. And we also have Stephen Shivcharan, Talent Acquisition Professional from Kroll. So thank you guys so much for joining. I also just want to acknowledge each of you individually. I want to say that you reach out to invite, experts, and everyone's so busy, but you made the time to be here tonight, and you made the time to contribute your knowledge and expertise with our community at Devant and across Canada. So we just want to say thank you so much for this evening. So let's get started with some questions. I'd like to sort of maybe just have you do a quick introduction, if you don't mind. Maybe, Stephen, we can start with you. Maybe you can please tell us a little bit about, your company and your role in the firm, just for individuals who may not have been introduced just yet to Kroll. Stephen, the floor is yours.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Sisha. Really great to be here. Hello to everyone, all 180 plus of you. So my name is Stephen Shifteran. I'm currently a manager at Kroll. I support with recruitment for our risk advisory function. Just to give you some more information on Kroll, we're actually 6,500 team members across the world. So we're in 34 countries, and we really provide a variety of risk and financial advisory solutions. So to really, boil it down, we provide consulting services for just a variety of areas, right? So we do everything from valuation for residential properties, forensic accounting, cyber risk, financial services compliance. So I help with recruitment primarily for the risk advisory within the Americas, and lots of great opportunities to learn about on our website, careers.kroll.com. But that's a bit about me, that's a bit about the firm, and hopefully that gives some more information.
Great. Thank you so much, Stephen. Well, we'll definitely have some follow-up questions for you. Lena, can I ask you maybe to go next? And maybe you can share with us a little bit about, the area that you work in at CIBC, the company, and a little bit about your role as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Shisha. So good evening and welcome everyone to this event, and absolutely happy, excited to be here to share whatever information, knowledge we can. I always say we were all there once upon a time, right? So there was somebody to guide us, someone to show us the way, and I'm glad we're able to do that for you this evening. So my name is Lena Cherian. I'm currently a director at CIBC within talent acquisition, human resources. I joined on a contract role. A bit about me, and you will find this on my LinkedIn profile, that I joined took a risk, joined as a 3-month contract in talent acquisition. I'm a talent acquisition professional all throughout. What turned out to be a 3-month contract, I'm here for 10 years now. So various roles, various support roles, constant learning, supported different portfolios across the bank. For the last 4 years, I'm supporting all of banking center hiring in all of Ontario. So when I say banking center hires, my business partner Chris is on the call. So when you walk into a banking center, anyone from a CSR, a customer service representative, I can't, it's evening. So customer service rep, all the way to the market vice president is what my team hires for, all across Ontario. And I lead a team of 14 talent acquisition partners. And so work very closely with the business to understand what are some of the things, what are some of the roles they are hiring for, and my team supports those hiring. So last, I would say 4 years, almost 4 years in banking center support hiring. That's all about me.
Wow, very inspiring. Thank you, Lena, for sharing your personal journey at CIBC. A 3-month contract turns into 10 years. So congratulations on your decade at CIBC. That's incredible. And
Thank
we're
you.
definitely gonna have some questions for you. So for
Mhm.
those of you who are considering questions right now, there are different parts of CIBC. So Lena's just explained sort of the function and the area that she represents and her team represents. And now I'm going to move it over to Rebecca Leeper. Thank you so much for joining. I'm definitely very interested in hearing sort of your recruitment background, as well as a little bit for the newcomers, students, and all of our guests here tonight. Can you please share a little bit about, CIBC World Markets and your role?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. I love coming to these types of events. So a little bit about me. I am one of our senior recruiters here on our capital markets early talent team. So I specialize in co-op and intern hiring for our capital markets division. I specifically support our global market sales and trading teams, some of our middle office roles in capital markets, but I've also supported with our investment banking, corporate banking, global transaction banking teams. So I can speak to all of capital markets recruitment as a whole. A bit about me, I started my career at CIBC as an intern. So the internship program is near and dear to my heart. I did my 4-month internship back in 2020. It was around the time COVID hit, so it was a very unique experience and one that I think I won't ever forget. I did my 4-month internship, went back to school, and then I ended up getting a contract role with the co-op team that I was part of. So I did about a 6-month contract after I graduated. And then I transferred over to talent acquisition. So I've been in the talent acquisition space for about 3 years. It'll be, though, 4 years with CIBC officially in October, or in a couple of weeks. um, but I've supported different areas across campus recruitment. So right now I focus on capital markets, but I have supported some of our intern hiring in finance, technology, people, culture, brand, and some of our new grad rotational programs. So we have a couple of rotational programs for MBA master's students, as well as some undergrad ones on our front office areas like commercial banking, private wealth. That is a little bit about me.
Wow. Oh my goodness. So you started as an intern and you moved on up throughout the bank. And, I love hearing these stories because it's important for students and also for newcomer youth to understand there are many different doors into large organizations. And once you're there, you can actually grow and expand and diversify your experience. So, I loved hearing your story as well. Thank you so much. And we also have Christopher here with us. Hi, Christopher. Welcome from the banking world. I'm so excited to have you here to support banking questions. Please feel free to introduce yourself to the group and welcome to the webinar.
Hi, everybody. Christopher Piersanti. I am the Community General Manager for the Rockwood community. I've been with CIBC almost 17 years. So straight out of, while I was in college, actually, similar to Lena, so not on a contract, but I was a part-time teller. And I had absolutely no ambition of getting into banking whatsoever. I was headed down the world of policing and firefighting. And then my background was in martial arts always, so I was a coach, I still am. And so that kind of was just something that aligned to me. And down the road, leaders kind of identified my characters and traits, and so they recommended me to follow that path. And 17 years later, the guy that thought he was going to be enforcing law ends up being a banker, and it has been quite the experience. It's an interesting world in banking, and it's one with a lot of change continuously. But as a leader here, my passion, and I'm sure my my CIBC colleagues would agree, and probably anyone, as a leader, our biggest motivating factor really is to see individuals come up and continue to grow their careers. I've been fortunate to have some incredible mentors throughout my career. Those are people that would be super important to kind of supporting you in your career. You need those types of individuals to give you a little bit of that, that critical feedback and how you can kind of change and align. So I saw a lot of questions on the chat that were being asked. So people are asking about skill sets and things like that. To be honest, if you can talk to somebody, if you have personality, the educational background to support it, the bank is for you. You don't necessarily have to be a specialist in finance. It's something we can all learn and grow. It's got to be something you're passionate about, right? And I think if you want to help people and change people's future and impact it, you're looking in the right place.
Wow, thank you so much, Christopher. And I actually just want to launch for those of you who are interested in banking or need banking support. Again, thank you so much, Christopher and CIBC, for sponsoring this event. I just have a poll here, and I said I would share some polls throughout the conversation. Just curious, what are your financial goals as a newcomer to Canada? What is your primary financial goal? And, looking to see how CIBC can support you, or other institutions can support you as well. This is a topic that we're looking at improving at Devant as well, in terms of adding it to our literacy webinars as well. So we're just curious to hear from you. What is sort of your major goal as a newcomer or as an audience member right now? I'm just going to wait to see if we can have a few more answers here, and then we're going to start off with some of our questions. So this is going to be very interesting for you, Christopher, and for your team. I'm seeing here we've got quite a few responses, over 100. So I'm going to just end this poll and share the results quickly. So, this is more than 55%, but just in light of timing, I'm going to move on to our questions. But it looks like a lot of individuals are saving for future investments or big purchases, also managing daily living expenses and saving for tuition. So very interesting information. Thank you guys so much for answering the poll. And now I'm going to move on to some of our career advice questions. And thanks so much, Christopher, for your really interesting background. I see that there's some comments here from people, so feel free to comment in the chat as well. And just a reminder for those of you who have just joined us, we're almost at over 200 right now. Please put your questions in the Q&A, and I will sort through those once we've had a chance for the panelists to answer some questions. So Lena, I'm going to ask you the first question because we had sort of a background, really good career story there from Christopher. Can you please share with us, like, what types of roles is your team currently hiring for, or will be hiring, and what are some of the skills that are top of mind or needed from your perspective?
Great question. So, as I did mention, for the last 4 years, we've been supporting hiring for our banking centers, right? So we're always continuously seeking top talent that is driven to provide exceptional client experiences. Back to what Chris just mentioned. If you know to talk, if you understand your client, you necessarily don't need a financial background for this. It's someone who's has the drive, the ambition, and the I would say the communication. When it comes to skills and attributes, we are seeking authentic individuals who hold strong communication, relationship building skills. And the most popular roles we hire for within the banking centers would be the client service representative and the financial services roles, which are available all year long. In fact, yeah. So client services, strong communication, relationship building, those are, I would say, would be the core skills, to name a few.
Okay, thank you. And Rebecca, from CIBC World Markets perspective, what are some of the key skills that you're looking for in early talent? And do you want to maybe highlight one or two hot roles right now that you're looking to fill?
Yeah, so right now we're recruiting for our winter co-op hiring, so that would be a January start. In terms of opportunities that we have across the bank, we have many different roles, and that could be in capital markets, HR, finance, commercial banking. really just wherever your interests are. I specifically support our capital markets world markets teams. So a lot of my roles right now are usually middle office roles, so offices and roles in our capital markets, client onboarding teams, our business management teams, things like that. So a lot of the support that helps go into helping front office run, and that could be teams supporting with the day-to-day project management, the admin, trade control, regulatory management, things like that. And then across the bank, again, different areas across that are hiring project coordinators, business analysts, really you name it. One of the things I will call out quickly, we are recruiting, or we're starting our acceptance of applications for our capital markets mentorship program, which is a new program, and I'll do a little quick shout out for that. It is specifically for first and second years looking to break into capital markets, specifically for those in our underrepresented groups. It is a great program. It is not a paid position, but a mentorship program for about 6 to 8 months from November to April. You'll be getting opportunities to network with different reps in capital markets, have and attend different workshops, resume workshops, tips on the market, tips and overviews of different lines of businesses across capital markets, and helping you set up for success for those summer internships that are a little bit more competitive in the industry.
Okay, that's really great to hear that you also have mentorship opportunities for individuals in underrepresented groups. And we can always share a follow-up email. So if there's any information that you'd like me to share with the group after this call, I'd be happy to do that in our follow-up note as well. So thank you so much, Rebecca, for sharing that. And Stephen, I know we talked a little bit earlier, and you're recruiting, you mentioned mostly like risk advisory, compliance type positions. Please share with us for more experienced hires, meaning individuals who've got more experience. What are some of the skills that you're looking for right now, Stephen? And maybe please also highlight what are some of those roles that you're looking to fill?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that question, Sisha. So I would say one of the great things about Kroll and consulting in general is there's a lot of flexibility, right? Just in terms of candidates that we consider. So for example, for those of you maybe with a finance background, we have a really big financial advisory practice. So let's say if you're looking for an analyst position in valuation, we typically look for individuals with maybe that finance background, maybe that accounting background, strong knowledge of DCF analysis, maybe the Argus model. For those of you maybe with a literature background, right? Our compliance, risk, and diligence team, which kind of goes out, does research on potential companies and creates these sort of risk reports. If you have a writing background, you can actually apply for one of our editor roles where you're going out there, doing the research, typing up the reports. So that's something else you could potentially be eligible for. But I would say in terms of Kroll, right, it really runs the gambit, everything from accounting to having an econ background. For compliance, I would say individuals with maybe that law background, right? Of course, definitely an asset. But we also have cyber risk opportunities as well, right? So having the cyber risk background might be an asset. So really a wide variety, and definitely different education backgrounds, right, can be slotted into different positions.
That's really interesting because I know we've got a number of individuals who've got cybersecurity and cyber risk backgrounds. So Stephen, for your roles, what is the cutoff, or is there sort of a benchmark in terms of like years of transferable experience that you look for? Because it would be different than like an early talent hire. So just for individuals to understand, like, would they be qualified for roles, at your organization? Could you help guide us on the level of experience that you're looking for?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say, it really depends on sort of the position, right? So let's take, your standard analyst position. I would say typically between maybe 1 to 2 years of experience, and that could be a combination of maybe internship experience, experience that you may have in sort of diverse work fields that could be contributed towards that 1 to 2 year mark. Let's say at the senior associate level, right, which would be slightly above the analyst position, that's typically at the 3 to 4 years of experience mark. And again, just given the fact that, the nature of a lot of our work, right, in terms of consulting, you can have some of that great international experience. That's definitely, counted towards that, 1 to 2 year or even 2 to 4 year mark, right, for some of these specialized fields.
Okay, thank you. That's really helpful because sometimes when you look at the posting or you look at the advertisement, they may or may not decide to apply if they don't think they have the transferable experience. So that's really helpful, Stephen. Thank you so much. I'm just looking at our queue. We are almost at 60 questions in here. So I had questions prepared, but I rather ask the questions that all of our guests here have for you. So I'm going to actually jump right into some of the questions. Rebecca, I did see a question on the mentorship program and the criteria. So maybe I could just start off with that for you, because you did mention the mentorship program and there was a question around very interested in the mentorship program and what's the criteria.
Absolutely. So one of the requirements is you do need to be in an undergraduate degree in your first or second year. The idea of the program is we're really trying to help prepare students applying for that third year summer internship, because the capital markets industry is really competitive and is quite frankly male dominated. So we are trying to bring in a lot of those students from those underrepresented groups. So students from our Black community, Indigenous candidates, women, students who identify with having a disability, and students who identify as being part of the LGBTQ plus community. So we do look to target our underrepresented community. Again, your first and second year of your undergraduate degree, and then a passion for the financial markets. So you really want to bring in students who are really interested in growing their career and really just want to learn more, absorb as much information as they can, network. So passion, I think, is one of the biggest requirements as well.
Okay, thank you so much. So I've got a question here about the resume. So I'd like to ask this because we're always not sure, like, what are you looking for when you screen through those resumes? And this is for anyone on the panel. So regarding the profile section at the top of the resume, what should they include? Do you prefer to see like a summary of their experience? And then how long should it be? Any tips on like the resume and the top of the resume that would grab your attention? And this is for anyone in the panel.
Yeah, I can definitely jump in. I would say from my experiences, looking at resumes and just hiring for different regions, I would say, being concise, right? That's always an asset, right? Especially depending on the amount of experience you have. So just in terms of, total resume length, right? Unless, you may have many, many years of experience, maybe you're applying for that director, senior director role, you'll typically see it go, over a page. But, I would say keeping it concise, keeping it to one page, definitely an asset. In terms of, the top, what I typically look for is just seeing if there's any information there as it relates to your profile, really connecting it to the role, right? So for example, let's say if you're applying to a valuation role, right? Maybe quickly tell me a bit about, your background, maybe your education, maybe why you're interested in the role. Just something, clear and concise that really, gives me some information on why you're applying to this position. And of course, I know, applying to roles definitely takes a lot of time, right? So I understand, tailoring your resume for different roles that can be time consuming, for different instances. But, if you really care about that position and you do have the capacity, right, to sort of add that in there, it's definitely an asset and something that might get to the recruiter's eye, right, to say, hey, you're really invested in this position that you've applied for, right? So, key takeaways, I would say, just keep it concise and see if you can tailor, some of those keywords, right, to the position that you're applying to.
Great. Thank you, Stephen. And for the panelists that we have here, if you have anything to add, feel free to add it in the chat as well. I'm going to try to get through some different questions. So if you want to add anything, please feel free to add that in the chat. Lena, I'm going to ask you the next question. We've got a question about trying to get into a CSR job at CIBC, but not getting through to get an interview. Do you have any sort of tips around, what can they do to try to get seen, like from the application to like an interview? Is there anything in particular that you feel stands out for your team?
So first things first, for a CSR opportunity anywhere in Ontario, we get about 500 to 600 applications. So if you are a candidate, you're up against 499 applicants, number one. So see to it, going back to Stephen's point, when the recruiter looks at a resume, see to it that it is clear, concise, short, to the point, where if it's a CSR role, you talk about your customer service, problem solving, communication, being empathetic, solving problems, and all of that right at the get-go. I have found most of the time resumes are very wordy. The first 10 seconds is what you need to really attract your recruiter's attention. So if you're applying for a CSR role, grab that information from a job description. How do you relate? Just portray that on the first couple of paragraphs on your first couple of bullet points on your resume, and showcase that. And sometimes you may not have a very related role or experience to that. Maybe you can talk about being a volunteer speak about your volunteer experience, working with a group or a team in school or external or partnerships, or being involved in the community. Talk about if you have any work experience, it can tie into the role in some way, if it is, even if it is not within a banking industry, right? So in most roles, you're working towards completing a set goal or learning new systems or working in a fast-paced environment, dealing with people, solving problems, and taking feedback. So I would say those are some of the tips that you need to watch out for when applying for an entry-level role. Are you really addressing what is being asked for?
Mhm. And Christopher, maybe I can ask you to build. Thank you so much, Lena. That was really useful. I'm seeing a lot of people very interested in getting into banking, and they just can't get into that interview stage. Is it possible like they could meet individuals like hiring managers or network? Like, how do they actually make those personal connections or stand out if they're just having a hard time getting through or getting the attention through the recruitment process? Do you have anything different that you'd like to share or add from that perspective?
Yeah, 100%. So I think part of it too, like if there's a local banking center close by, it never hurts to drop in and say hello. I've had that happen from time to time where individuals just came to introduce themselves. And they've come really well prepared. So they've almost come in like they were ready to do an interview, even though there wasn't an interview set up, but they came with, what their background was, what they were looking to do. And I mentioned this in the chat too, is, come prepared with not just what you want, what's relevant, but like to Lena's point, when we have so many applicants, tell us what's going to make you different. So I'll give you a funny example of what I used to do on my resume. I haven't had to apply for a role in a while, but I included like some of my history in martial arts. So, I was competing nationally. So that was something I put. I was coaching. So that was something I put. I currently volunteer for a hospital committee. I'm part of a cycling committee. So I've done all these extra things. And what it does to individuals like us who are reviewing is it shows that you've got a discipline for one, and that you're someone that really has structure to their life, and you operate like that all the time. And we want to see that because we rely on time management and things like that in our world. It's so fast paced. And so we need individuals that have control of those types of things, or that are practicing that. If you're looking to get into like some sort of an advisory role down the road, typically a lot of individuals who are in the CSR role are looking to eventually build into what we call an FSR, financial service rep role. And so a huge asset is, how do you network? Like, what do you do? Are you part of committees? Are you part of a soccer club, a church, or whatever that might be? Outlining some of those in a resume isn't a bad idea, because again, it gives us a little bit more in-depth understanding to what background you bring and what sets you apart from everyone else who might have similar qualifying criteria to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I just wanted to add another point as well to this, adding to what Chris just mentioned. We have from time to time on CIBC careers page or on LinkedIn, we do advertise upcoming CIBC meet and greet career nights, where top candidates are invited to network with banking center leaders and our recruitment team. So this is a fantastic opportunity to showcase the skills and experience you could bring to CIBC, and also broaden your network within the banking industry. Chris and I have been a part of many such events where we have had candidates apply to this meet and greet. It's not an interview. It's a 10-minute, 15-minute session where a candidate, a CSR potential candidate, meets with Chris, who is a CGM. He's in a perfect role. He is the hiring manager. He knows the role inside out because he has people reporting to him. He sees potential. You get to meet Chris. A lot of times, candidates do not get that opportunity. So watch out for those invites coming in different markets. Apply to the requisition and be attend to those events.
Mhm. Thank you so much, Lena. So I have a question where I'm not sure, and there seems to be like there are some individuals who are here who have a healthcare background. So Stephen, and then Rebecca, are there any transferable skills or opportunities for individuals with a healthcare background, just so they know if it makes sense or not for them to consider roles within your organization? Stephen, can I ask you to go first, and then Rebecca?
Absolutely, absolutely, right. And I think of individuals, in healthcare, despite what role you're in, right, really some of the key traits would be, having those interpersonal skills, attention to detail, the ability to maybe work in some of those, tense situations. So I could say, definitely some of those key traits, right? Those core abilities would definitely be transferable to potential, opportunities in consulting. Right now, I think it would depend on, the specific, background or specific job within healthcare that you had. But, some of those key traits, right? That's what I would encourage you if you're exploring, maybe making the transition into a career in consulting. It's really highlighting some of those key traits, connecting it to the job posting, kind of touching on what Lena had mentioned previously, where you're able to show, right, what's the synergy, between what you were doing previously and what you're looking to get into, right? So I would say really focusing on some of those key traits, highlighting it, maybe, connecting that to some of the positions that you're considering, might be an avenue to go, but definitely healthcare, right? Some of those core traits, right, would definitely be transferable.
Okay, thank you so much. And Rebecca, any thoughts from you in terms of somebody who's got a healthcare background, or if there are any opportunities that you see as transferable for healthcare professionals?
Absolutely. And I think my response will probably be pretty similar to Steven's. um,
Okay.
a lot of it is those transferable skills. In terms of opportunities, I mean, it really depends what you're interested in. Some of our roles, obviously, like core capital markets, some of the areas in finance, they are looking for those commerce finance students, fully transparently. But you have different areas like in HR, in people, culture, brand, that may be a really cool crossover that may be of interest to you, especially as an intern. We have quite a few students who have joined in HR, different areas, who didn't have just business or commerce backgrounds, who came from different areas. So I think, it really is up to you to figure out what kind of is your passion, where you find you fit. If it's maybe in working with people, maybe HR is a great opportunity for you. And that's where maybe internships may be a cool place to explore and try different areas. I did an internship in HR. I luckily I did have the HR background. There's a lot of people I did internships with who didn't have the HR background. So again, it's figuring out what is the best fit for you, and then looking at those transferable skills, communication, attention to detail, the willingness to raise your hand and learn as much as you can, things like that. You'll have to take the onus of showcasing why, these are the skills you have and how that would be applicable to those opportunities. But I think there's a spot for you if you're hoping to take the trip into corporate.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. So I see some questions here around, really, again, trying to get into like a business analyst or a data analyst role. So Stephen, maybe I can go back to you for this. At Kroll, do you want to highlight anything different, or any, qualifications that really spark your interest when you're looking for, candidates for a business analyst or data analyst role? And then Rebecca, I'm going to ask you to add or to comment as well, please.
Absolutely. So I would say from a data analyst perspective, really having the core educational background, right? So do you have, an undergrad with, some related data analyst, courses, right? Do you maybe have, a master's, right? That would lend to the data analyst field. Beyond that, in terms of business analyst, similarly, right? It's really looking at the education. So maybe looking at your undergrad, seeing if you had, a related business degree, right, or any related internships that would, lend to a business analyst, position. But I would, really say overall, again, in terms of consulting, really wide breadth of requirements. And, if you do have that educational background, not a lot of experience, but the internship, that's definitely something we consider, especially at the analyst level.
Okay. Thank you.
I can pop in as well. And I can maybe speak on those students who are looking for student internships in business analyst roles or data analyst roles. I think, keeping an eye out for what opportunities you're looking for. Like if you're looking for the winter term, like January to April, first week of September, where you should be applying, keeping an eye on our students in grad site, applying to whatever is interest to you. Maybe if you're more of a junior student and don't have much experience, totally fine. We look at a lot of different things. Other experiences we love to see, extracurriculars. If you're part of any clubs on campus, volunteer work, really, really important to see. Any other, clubs you're part of, if you're part of any sports clubs, you do any extracurriculars on your own personal side, shows a lot of the soft skills, a lot of the dedication, things like that. I think one thing to keep in mind when you're looking at those postings, just check the sections to showcase, the who you are and how you'll succeed. Those sections will give you details. If, maybe that team's looking for someone who has a bit of coding background or a bit more of a technical background. If you're looking at that section and it has maybe 5 different, technical skills, and maybe you have 3, still apply to it. Those 5 are the perfect world's best candidate. They're not expecting to get all 5. They're hoping for a couple, and then they can help train you for the rest. So keep that in mind when you're applying to internships. Talk about your extracurriculars, your part-time work. A lot of that, you can get those transferable skills that we talk about in the who you are section and what we're looking for. So something to keep in mind. But I would say, when you see those applications, if you're looking for summer 2025, those roles go up in January, and highly, highly recommend, first week in January, you start looking, you start applying, and apply whatever interests you. And that's kind of the best you can do.
Thanks, Rebecca. I see that still a lot of questions on process. Lena, maybe I can ask you to help us understand, like, what is the recruitment process and how can individuals find out what the jobs are and then apply to those jobs? I'm seeing quite a few questions here around, like, getting advice on the best step to take to apply to the bank.
Okay, so again, depending on the role, going back to Rebecca's point, look at who you are, what you need to be successful. If you're applying to an FSR role and it clearly says that you need an Investment Funds Canada or a Canadian Security Certificate, it is required for the role, you are not going to get a call because it is a requirement for the role. So read what are the accreditations and the requirements that's mentioned and tailor your resume accordingly. So for a recruitment process, you apply for the role. For any entry level CSR, FSR kind of roles, there is an assessment you will go through, which is about 20 to 25 minutes. Once you apply to the role, the recruiter gets to see it, will go through your resume. If it's a clear fit, your assessment scores are looked at, there is a 20-minute screening call that will be booked by the recruiter with you to really confirm if you have all of the skills. Again, the recruiter is not looking for a 10 out of 10. Even if you bring a 6 or a 7 or an 8 out of 10, rest can be worked upon, right? So sometimes I do have people coming in to say, oh, I see this. Well, I don't have this. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Do you have the remaining, which the others can be worked on, right? So that's one. So once everything goes well with the recruiter and that recruiter interview, you go to the next step, which is the hiring manager screen. And if everything goes well, a verbal offer is made, and then a final offer is processed through our ATS, our Workday system online.
Great. Okay, thank you so much for outlining, because sometimes it's you're not sure if you haven't actually gotten called by a recruiter or you haven't had an interview yet. So that's very helpful to understand. I have a different question here by someone asking about the ATS system. And, when they do an application, is a human looking at the application, or is it being screened out or screened in by some kind of AI?
Absolutely. So we get this question a lot. Yes, we do have a recruiter, Rebecca. She's a living example of this. We go through every resume. And what happens with this assessment that you do is if you do well in those assessments, it gives you the top 25 or the top 50. But we do look at the resumes. So it's not AI. It's not keywords that you type in. It is looked at. But if it's a high volume, like a 500 applicant requisition sitting in, those with highest number of, like, where there is everything matching to what the role is, those get selected for first step. Doesn't mean we don't pay attention to the others.
Okay, thank you so much. Stephen, did you want to add anything to that? I'm just curious now about AI, and I know you're here. So when do you actually get into the process?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the exact same process here at Kroll. It's always, human looking at your resume. And this kind of calls back to what we were talking about earlier, right? Like, if you're able to look at the job description, put some of those keywords on the resume, show how your profile connects to the position, it makes the recruiter's job, very easy, right? Because if I'm looking for somebody with a forensic accounting background and you have that right on the resume, that's an easy way to get my attention and for me to reach out to you for an email to do the call, right? So just confirming, not AI, 100% human. You know, a recruiter is actually looking at your resume, and that's what makes it so easy to stand out, right? Because if we're looking at that job description, we're looking at your resume. If we can see the connection, we're more than likely going to reach out, given the volume of applicants.
Of applicants. Okay, so there's some kind of a connection. I also have some really great experienced individuals here in the room, you know, one individual and a couple as well from marketing and communications. So for individuals who are new to Canada that have a marketing and communications background back home, you know, any suggestions on what they can do to enter the Canadian communications job market or try to get into marketing and communications? Not sure if those are any roles that exist within your firms, if you wanted to comment, and this is just open to anyone.
Again, a common question that we do get. The first things first is apply for roles online. All of our active open roles are on our website. B, we have a solid platform called LinkedIn. Join groups where you have tons of groups that is marketing, communications, digital groups that they share jobs there. They talk about new systems, new things being implemented, and you're part of that group, and people recognize you. You're putting in your comments, and that particular. So, for example, because I'm in HR, I'm in talent. I am a part of every possible group in HR and talent, and so when there is a conversation going on somewhere in the world, I'm a part. I'm part of it. When there is a job that's being posted, I'm a part of it. So I would say I've had a lot of people telling me about success joining these groups, because now you're being very specific, not open to everything, but very specific to marketing, very specific to communications.
Okay. Okay. And I also have a follow-up question here for you, Lena, on something that you said originally around, I think, assessments. So they're just curious, you know, let's just say they do get an interview, they do go through the assessment, but then they don't hear anything back. So a little bit more on a little bit more on the assessment, and then how do they know, you know, if they should move on? Because sometimes they, you know, they don't hear back. So any suggestions or thoughts there around, like, if I'm in the interview process, how do I know that I'm still part of the consideration? Or basically, if I don't hear back, like, how do I know if I'm declined and I should move on?
Correct. Perfect. Good. Great question. So as I said, for those roles, you are up against 500 applicants. Assessment is one area. Your resume is very important for that decision-making point. So it's just not assessment alone, but your resume or experience. So if you are showcasing, your resume is showcasing everything that the job description is talking about, you will be in that top 10, 20 candidates to be connected, to be contacted. But if you don't, then you get a decline email right in the next 2 or 3 days time, because you're up against someone who's showcasing all of these attributes or experience in their resume. So assessment is one data point, but resume is equally important.
Yeah, and I would just add to it. So something that we see a lot, especially in the live interview process, is to listen into the questions that are being asked, because sometimes we're so excited and we want to answer and we want to give the best answer. But what we're always looking for is very specific examples. And a lot of the time, what ends up happening is we get very generic answers or hypotheticals on what you would do in a situation or what you would kind of approach. But actually try to give us a real example of what you did in your current line. And don't be afraid to share something that isn't work related. So, you know, you may not have necessarily the experience in a sales role and so, you know, for you to position, well, how would you approach something? You might be able to kind of compare that to a sport, or you can compare it to your schooling experience and what you did on a school project. So it doesn't necessarily mean you have to give us a work related answer. They're useful and they're important, but maybe having diverse answers throughout the interview process again will help to outline and kind of separate you from the others. And that is what I find typically is usually a challenge in the interview process.
That's really good. So the content of the story and the example is really important to prepare for those interview questions and be very specific, is what I'm hearing, Christopher. So thank you so much for that. And I just want to encourage everyone as well to reach out to your community supports. as well as through Devant. We have a lot of support for coaching. If you belong to university or college, they have free career services as well. So definitely reach out and practice your interview before you get onto a real interview. Thank you so much, Christopher, for that that advice. Stephen, I have a question for you for someone who's more experienced. Some questions from individuals who already have sort of some banking experience or have had financial services experience, but are looking to move up. Can you maybe share, some other roles or career advancement opportunities that might exist for individuals who already have like an MBA, financial services experience, and are looking to move up in a more senior capacity?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I would say one of the key areas that I hire for, where we're seeing a lot of individuals maybe transition from banking into consulting, would be maybe our compliance consulting group, right? So what these individuals do are they're the consultants that will go out, work with different hedge funds, private equity shops, broker dealers, sort of within the Americas, to make sure that they're compliant, right? So really checking out their marketing materials, really checking out their documentation, making sure that it aligns to maybe the SEC or even FINRA. So I would say those are definitely opportunities to really consider, right? If you're looking to maybe transition from financial services into maybe more of a consulting role, because that will be sort of a direct connection if you have sort of that compliance background. And then I would say just beyond that, especially having that MBA, especially here at Kroll, right, where we're always looking for talented individuals with great sort of educational backgrounds, right? So feel free to take a look at our website, right? There really is a wide variety of roles, and just depending on experience, right? You can come in at that vice president, senior vice president level, and potentially transition up to the director, right? Which would sort of be the next step up on sort of the career ladder here at Kroll.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Stephen. So, I mean, some of these roles too, they may not know like some of the acronyms, or so if there are any acronyms that you guys are not sure of, please like put in the chat as well. We'll try to answer them if we can. So I know we're at 7:54 and there's quite a few questions that are quite personal around people's like circumstances and backgrounds. So I think at this point, what I'd like to do is just to share with you some further supports that we have available. And again, I just want to thank Rebecca, Lena, Stephen, and Christopher so much for being so generous with your feedback and sharing sort of the insider scoop of what happens when the resumes and interviews happen. Really appreciate that. So we just sort of finished most of the Q&A, but I have some really important information to help you as well. I just want to remind everyone that we have regular weekly events. Wednesday, October 9th, we have a resume clinic with Devant Career Coaches that is free, that everyone can attend. We also have some events that are for our clients, students and newcomers of our clients. So you just want to take a look and make sure you are eligible for some of these events. On October the 16th, we have another really great event called Understanding the Canadian Job Market, which is also graciously sponsored by CIBC. So take a look out for that. And then on October 16th and 17th, we've got Get Hired at Home, which is our virtual hiring expo. We have over 200 jobs already available. We have jobs across multiple functions, including healthcare, finance. We have jobs by different cities, including Ottawa, London, across Ontario. And then we also have jobs in the real estate sector as well. And so it's growing in terms of employers who are going to be there, but this is going to be available to everyone, newcomers, international students, and individuals who are newcomer youth as well. So if you haven't already registered, please take a look at that. On the 16th will be the career development sessions, and on the 17th will be the speed interviews with recruiters and info sessions. And then on October the 23rd, we have another immigration Q&A, ways to extend your status. Little bit about Get Hired at Home as well. As I said, you can register here for Get Hired at Home. And we've done this a couple years now, I think 3 or 4 years. And Kate, who's my colleague, I want to acknowledge Kate, who's here joining from our team. She's been answering some of your questions. She's behind the scenes, helping with logistics. Thank you so much, Kate, for answering some of those questions. We will put it in the chat as well. And then in terms of supports, as I said, you can get one-on-one career coaching. We can provide you LinkedIn audits, resume, cover letter feedback. And just a reminder, that your universities and colleges all have supports available to you. So please do take some time to reach out to your services if you have them available as well. So I wanted to just put in, again, thanking CIBC so much. I've got another quick poll that I'd love to hear from you guys. So I see there was a lot of newcomers here. So I'm just going to launch this other poll here. You know, for those who are newcomers on the call, please feel free to share like where you originally call home. So whether you originally came from India, the Caribbean, I saw a couple of individuals from marketing in the Caribbean, from Nigeria, or anywhere else across the globe, you know, feel free to please share with us a little bit about where you call home in this poll as well. And then finally, as we have individuals, you know, answering that question, I would love to hear your feedback. Please let us know, you know, if you found this session useful. It was an hour that we shared together. We had almost 200 individuals, you know, in and out on the call. If you find this useful and you'd like for us to do more of these Ask a Recruiter events, bringing in employers to share their industry expertise, please let us know your feedback. It's very useful. You'll also get a follow-up from Kate in terms of the feedback, more specifically on this session. So we want to make sure that we are offering sessions that help you, that help connect recruiters to supply of talent right now, but also to the diversity of talent that exists right here in this virtual space. So, you know, I'd really love to hear from you in terms of what are you looking for? You know, was this helpful? Should we continue to do this again? We have weekly events that are free every Wednesday from 7 to 8. And then we also offer other sessions as well. I know there's quite a few questions. I will stay here after 8 o'clock to try to answer some of your questions in the chat as well as Q&A. But I just want to take this moment again to thank our panelists so much for joining us for your time this evening. I'm just going to share the results. So we've got some very powerful feedback, you know, really high results. So thank you so much. I also want to mention for banking perks, and for those of you who are new to Canada, Christopher is here. I'm going to put his contact information in the chat right after we finish this call. But you do have different types of banking perks, financial services support that you have available. So make sure you take a copy of this QR code and that you participate as well. In the follow-up session, we will send an email follow-up with some more resources for you, links to the jobs that are available, you know, by Kroll, CIBC, as well as any follow-up communication from Stephen, Rebecca, or Lena. So thanks everyone so much for joining. We are right at 8 o'clock. I don't want to keep our recruiters and our guests any longer, but on behalf of everyone here, like, please show them your love. If you have any final comments in the chat, feel free to share that as well. Really appreciate you guys so much for being here, for contributing and sharing your advice and your comments. You know, sometimes when you're applying online, especially for newcomers, there's been quite a few changes in immigration. And, you know, we really need to have this personal connection sometimes to get good, reliable information. And I know you have your information online, but we wouldn't be able to really capture this information that you share, because sometimes, you know, you do feel, you know, that you're alone and that you're applying online and you're not really sure, you know, how things are being received. So, you know, your time here right now is just been incredible. On behalf of Devont and my team, on behalf of everyone who's been listening from different communities across Canada, thank you so much for your time this evening. Have a great time, everyone, for the rest of your evening with your family and friends. I hope that we get to see you again at a future event. As I said, I'm going to end the session now, but I will stay online to go through the chat and go through the questions. And I will be saving the chat so that if we can follow up with you after, we'll make sure to do that. Have a good evening, everyone, and thank you guys so much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.